we're gonna start the meetings. There's the three of us here, and Jen Weinkerl, so she might be just a little bit late because she's at the farmer's market, but she might like 10 minutes or so. And for the three of us are here, so we can start the meeting. So
who all is there, Michael?
it's here in the village hall. It's just me and Matt.
Okay.
So with the three of us, we have a quorum, so we can start. Okay, I will call the August 13th, 2025 Sustainability Committee meeting to order. So roll call here, Steve Douglas.
Here.
Jenny Dietering.
Present.
Jen Weinkerl. Melissa Gavin. Michael Pomakowski's here. Okay, we're now in public comment. I don't see anyone here. Is there anyone online?
Nope.
Okay, not seeing any public comment. We'll move on to general business. Are there any committee member report outs and updates?
Nothing from Steve.
Okay, sounds great. So now we'll move on to approving the July 9th sustainability meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the July 9th meeting minutes?
Steve will make a motion to approve.
And
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the July 9th sustainability meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, the meeting minutes are passed. Okay, now we're on to the discussion on the sustainability plan being incorporated into the village's comprehensive plan. Steve, you did a little work on chapter 5. Would you like to discuss what you came up with, what you did?
Sure. Do you have it there, or do I need to fetch it?
I don't know, figuring it out. Do you want to share?
There we go. Yep, I was.
Or do you have the
Where's the packet? I think I lost the packet.
We're bringing it up right now.
Okay. Otherwise, I did find it too if you need me to pull it up.
Yeah, we go down to those were, yeah, that's what Steve did this stuff.
Okay.
Is this what you want to see, the stuff that you wrote?
Yep. Thanks. I don't know if others had a chance to read that, but I can just kind of run through it. So my task was to review chapter 5 of the comp plan, utilities and community facilities, pages 81 to 90, and see if there was any opportunities for us to either insert or modify language to sort of represent the mission goals of our sustainability committee. My big takeaway was that it's actually, I thought, pretty good in its current state. There's bullet points down below that we can run through where I think they either address or at least align with sort of our principles, and it's really, I think, really pretty well done. In particular, they reference this parks and open space plan. It is, I think, really good. They put a lot of effort into that. It addresses that sort of like bullet 1 down there. And I guess I'm just sort of pulling out, hey, here's the good stuff I found that I think should stay. And that was also, should note that it was recently revised, like it looks brand new. It has a date of like 2025 to 2029 on it. So I think they must have just released this, reviewed it and released it, or it's getting close to being released. But it does have a lot of references to things such as preserving open spaces. It references sort of the Black Earth Creek as a resource in town. It references bike and pedestrian paths, which I think, align with, some of our, or at least a previous goal that we had on our plan. Create additional parks and spaces. It's actually has a really nice grid in there where it outlines all the open spaces, the size, what they're used for, where they are, anything that may be sort of, I think alluded to some that were in development also. And also references some things that have come up with us too, such as a lighting ordinance. Michael, you're very familiar with that. And for the new members, know that Michael has been looking at the lighting ordinance for quite a while and trying to come up with sort of a digestible, reasonable plan to propose at some point in time. We'll still call it in draft form, but just so you know, Michael has put a lot of time into that. And the plan also references parking. They did base that off of a community survey back in 2024, which I think I vaguely remember getting that survey. So it was sort of like the citizens' preferences of things. Chapter 5 also addresses, or at least references, some what they call additional Highway 14 improvements that are, it sounded like they're coming, and I'm not familiar with what these might be. Maybe Matt might know a little bit more about this. These specifically, we're talking about addressing wastewater. This isn't like catching stormwater. This is more of, I think, as the village grows and how we get, wastewater to the water purification plant there on the west side of town. And I don't know, Matt, maybe I'll just throw that out there right now. Do you know of any big looming projects that are coming on 14, like through the Main Street corridor?
No, I don't know of any. All that should have been replaced when Highway 14 got redone.
Right, when they redid the downtown, which was has it been about 10 years?
Yeah, probably
Yeah,
at this point.
Summer 2000.
Okay.
When all that
So I guess it's possible that reference there then is actually old, like that's been done because of the Main Street improvements. That's a possibility. They do reference the water supply and infrastructure, and I do know that as a village had recently brought that. I think it's a third well online, or did that replace a failing well?
No, we
I think it
have
was a new
3
one.
wells total now.
Okay. So obviously clean water, very important to what we're about. There's a reference to something called a Cross Plains Area Stormwater Management Plan. And that they reference a 1996 document from the engineers from Town and Country Engineers, who have been sort of our, I guess, our engineering firm that's been on retainer for a very long time. That's a bit old, and they reference it to be completed by 2015, some goals, and then that there were also additional long-term goals. What wasn't clear to me though was like, what's the status of those things? Like, were they ever done? Were they ever, started, completed? What the status was, and I don't know where to find that information out. If that would be a question for the village administrator, possibly.
I can talk to Town and Country and maybe get some information on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Question also.
Because obviously stormwater management is very high on our list of priorities. And so, if these things were done and in place, prior to 2018, and we still had the issues that we had, is there an ongoing or renewed effort, to either beef that plan up or address it in some way. I don't know, and I'm don't know, Cross Plains residents really know either, but thanks, Matt. That would be helpful just to find out sort of what the status, what the items even were, and how successful we were at meeting those. And Michael, just maybe I should back up. Our goal with doing this, if we identify some new opportunities, are we able to like grab the draft and enter this language, or do we need to like summarize it, give it to someone who has sort of editing authority on the comprehensive plan? Like how are our inputs going to be sort of received or enacted?
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that the other day, like they've done some draft stuff and we're supposed to write up sections or areas where we want items changed or improved, or how do we incorporate those in? I wasn't really exactly sure how that process was gonna work.
Because I know you
After
you
the,
actually shared with. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I just know Michael had shared with me a couple chapters that were already marked up. Like somebody's doing this. Yeah. Sorry, Jenny. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
saw that too. So that looked like that document had those track changes on there. So I don't know if at one of our meetings we can just enter track changes ourselves on there. The changes would probably have to be approved, but I also did after last meeting start putting together just a separate Word document with just like what step-by-step recommendations that we would have. So maybe, we could consider that too, just putting one document together with recommendations to send to the Plan Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good. That
Those
sounds like a great thing.
markups that you're seeing in those chapters that I'm putting in, those were the markups that the plan commission went through, because they kind of did this initial sort of swipe of, oh, this needs to be updated, this needs to be changed before they send it to the village planner and for them to actually go and get the new information. And they're gonna be waiting to see what the results of the community survey. Right now, there's a survey out for the comprehensive plan also. It's available online or in paper form here at the library or Village Hall. If you go on the village website, it's available through the end of September. So people probably need to know about that. Depending on how that information comes back, I think will definitely influence what goes into the comprehensive plan with with our recommendations. But yeah, eventually at some point, they're gonna want a list of recommendations. And whether or not we just put it in one document and say, in this chapter, we would like this put in this section, we actually do markups in the document, where we have to start to figure out like what we actually want to say places.
Okay, good idea. So just sort of moving down through the plan, things I liked seeing in there that were in there already. They did mention sort of our solid waste and recycling services. That seems pretty standard in as a utility that you see, like in, for instance, the Middleton plan as well. But the fact that that they call it out that we recycle is a good thing. What was not mentioned was the village's yard waste pickup. And the composting area there, as well as the curbside leaf vacuuming thing that's going on. I think it was a pilot. I know they've done it for I think 2 years now, and I don't know if that has been fully adopted or not. But I think it's a pretty awesome resource. I mean, we use that quite often. Not only the leaf thing, but particularly the brush pickup. So, I mean, it's not only a nice service, but we also know that it keeps the stormwater drains clear of leaves, which, sort of is on a big picture helps the whole water management issue. They they call out the new library, and the fact that it was LEED certified. They give that quite a bit of attention, which I think is a good thing. As we know, like with the recent Village Hall, it wasn't the easiest sell to just by default, take a path that would lead to LEED certification. But I think the fact that they called out the effort that we did for the library and the fact that it reused products, it repurposed materials in their construction. So, it's good to have that kind of just public discussion sort of out there. It normalizes the fact that sustainability building practices are a thing. And, I think should stay on people's radars for sure. Yeah, I thought it was nice that they mentioned that. I mentioned the grid that shows the parks and rec spaces. They do have specific objectives and policies at the end of the chapter, and they specifically mention a lot about like pedestrian accessibility. They talk about bike routes and possibly adding additional trails. They obviously the open spaces were a big deal. And I do think the village puts a lot of effort into that. We do have a lot of varieties of playgrounds and things like that. So, and new developments, they encourage them to create new open spaces, which I think we had discussed at a previous meeting that new development had not a lot accounted for that, or at least planned for it yet. I know it's a lot of planning still going there, but what was it like? How many houses was up there? 400? And they didn't plan for a park? It was a lot of houses anyway, I remember. They allude to
Steve, I think I
coordination
just
with
read
other-
in the paper, sorry to interrupt you. I
No,
think I just read in the paper about the last meeting where they had done the preliminary approval that it sounded like the developer, did they do a buyout so that they didn't have to put in a park or something like that? They agreed to something like $600,000. They, I don't know if it was like they were giving that money to the village and then
Okay.
they
Interesting.
weren't going to have a park. That's what it sounded like.
So they can put in
Maybe Michael knows
four
more.
more houses and make $6 million.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Right, yeah, they can do a fee in lieu of parkland dedication if they want to. And that's for this section of the plat, or this plat that was approved, I believe that's what the developer's doing, because there's a park down on Evergreen and Bear and then over on Melody Park, so they felt that there's no parks around for this initial 100 houses that they didn't need to put one in there. They didn't want to. So that's what was approved for this section of that development.
Okay. So just to clarify, the initial sort of wave one is 100 houses?
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Okay. Some things I thought we could add. I think I mentioned, we've already talked about the stormwater thing, and we'll get some more information on that. They're specifically called out in that policies section. They reference the map, and you can see that it essentially talks about it shows floodplains and things like that. The map in the comprehensive plan, I should say. They mentioned consideration of development of a stormwater utility, which I don't think we have. Which is interesting that when you look at Middleton's plan, they do, but they're obviously much bigger than us. But that concept of a stormwater utility or a stormwater utility board to sort of oversee all this stuff. So you've got dedicated people sort of looking and talking at this about stormwater and what we can do. I just thought that was a really cool concept. So Middleton has that pretty well developed as it is, and might be interesting to hear from them at some point in time. When they come up with questions too, they probably have more resources than we do. They mention employing consultants to help them plan out these different initiatives that they feel like are going to be important too. So bringing in outside help, essentially experts, to help with these recommendations. So maybe something to either propose or learn about a little bit more. Lastly, thinking of what I saw in Middleton's plan, they do mention net zero building, and conservation of energy. They definitely have a light ordinance. They do food waste pickup, which we as a sustainability committee, I know several years ago that was on our original plan, and we really did not get much traction, much interest in that. But I don't know if we want to possibly just keep it on the radar as a potential, future thing. If Cross Plains ends up, becoming 6,000 people, maybe we reach some critical mass at some point where we could either afford it or it would make sense. So that's kind of what I came up with. Does anybody have any questions? I can't say I'm the full authority on chapter 5, but I think in general, my takeaway was it was actually already a pretty good start. It's just, I wonder how much is actually being done. If it's just concepts or, are we acting on, the previous suggestions?
I do question that about the stormwater management. That's like what public facilities does, right? You guys basically go around and make sure all the stormwater stuff is working.
Yes, that's essentially. Middleton, I believe last year did hire in their special training for a stormwater management. So it's a new position in Middleton, but it's becoming more and more. There's more positions of that now that there's more training and testing and classes on that subject.
Is that something you think Cross Plains should pursue, or do you think your department does it well enough to where, I don't know anything about stormwater utilities. I mean, so I'm asking.
We don't quite have like the infrastructure like this. Our infrastructure is fairly short, goes to the creek. But you add more and more and more, it might. I don't think we're there yet, and I don't know if we'll be there even after that development, but it's something that it'd be good to just someone on staff have a little specialized training in event down the road.
Even if we don't have a utility, just
Yeah.
more some. Because I know, like, when we have large events, like, do you guys go and make sure like all the culverts are clear? Is that part of your
We
thing, sort of?
kind of, we pretty much circle the village on a weekly basis. So if there's an issue, we try to address it.
Like there's a tree or a shrub or something blocking
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Up there in Bear Park, there's all those culverts that come under that road, feed in from Evergreen and all that, and then just even some of the other basins that we have. You guys just make sure those stay clear of debris.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what it's for, one utility.
Yep. They would just probably do a little bit better inspecting, and they'd be essentially focused on it. So.
Okay.
So yeah, I couldn't hear all of that, but did you say that it also would include something where they would look at like the whole basin and making sure that we have adequate utilities in place to manage stormwater?
They wouldn't be getting into the calculations and the drainage fields and making sure everything's the correct size. It'd just be maintaining the infrastructure we have.
Yeah, if we wanted to make sure that the whole basin was, that would be like that report that Town and Country would put together. I assume the 96 one that was referenced, and they would do a more comprehensive analysis on this is where all this water is going to go when a storm happens. I mean, right now the village sort of does it piecewise, like when a new development comes into the village, the engineers just kind of look at, okay, this is this one piece, how is water going to move through it? We need to retain 90% of the water that falls here, the rest can move through. But if there's already an area where water flows through that section of land, they pretty much, it looks like, just keep it flowing through that section of land. If you look at the preliminary plat for the new development, there are major sections where water is flowing through where they don't have houses. Or where they're going to funnel water that comes off the hill and just continue its movement through down to the creek.
And this kind of goes with the Highway P project too, right? That Town and Country and everyone's helping with to slow down Brewery Creek coming through town to kind of hold stuff off on the other side of Highway P, slowing it down coming through the village.
Definitely.
So Town and Country was already involved in that and doing an assessment there.
We got I believe a grant, and so the village owns 13 acres, I believe, outside of town, and they're doing not a huge retention area, but kind of more of a ripple effect to just slow that down.
Do you know what the status of that is?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh,
I thought it was supposed to be getting constructed this year, but
yeah, I did as well.
But we definitely already have the land.
oh yeah, there's already a land, there's already a plan set. I want to say I'm not going to say it's supposed to start this year, I believe. It's
Yeah.
still money from the flood. So.
Yeah, there was we hired some firm to design some stuff up there, and it's just, I don't know whatever happened to it. It just kind of went
It's still in process.
somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions you want? And Jen Wankerl has shown up. He's here with us. So
That's one per two.
sorry, Long. I saw you say
We're a bunch of Germans. The blonde girl, yeah, a bunch of Germans. Okay, so I have printed out my suggestions here for the people in the room. I'm sorry, those of you who are not in the room will not get to see them. They're switching across. Okay, so I did chapter 6 on housing and neighborhood development. And first I looked at our spreadsheet and I noted that there's basically 2 areas on our spreadsheet that would relate to this chapter. One was reviewing the zoning and building codes and identifying impediments to green sustainable building practices, such as green roofs, green water systems, suggesting changes to those. And the other suggestion was to encourage new residential subdivisions that are over 10 units to provide garden spaces for residents, and I added neighborhood composting facilities as a suggestion possibility. So those are the 2 things that we suggested be added. And then I looked online and got different ideas of other things that other communities are adding to their plans. And then I copied here parts of our existing plan and where I would make those changes. So chapter 6, the first part talks about just kind of the overview of housing and neighborhood development. And I suggested that when it talks about the policies and recommendations supporting the interest in achieving high quality neighborhoods, I would add that adhere to sustainability goals such as, and then list some of our goals there. Just so that I think what we had discussed is our sustainability goals are sprinkled throughout the whole plan, right? So we'll reference them right away in the intro there. And then right below that, our plan says the housing and neighborhood development recommendation summary. And I put the existing summary parts there, and then I added consider appropriate sustainability features when making recommendations for development. And then on page 96 of our plan, it states the first goal would be to provide safe, affordable, quality housing, and I added sustainable quality housing. We can vary our verbiage here, but again, I think it's important to keep referring to this goal throughout. And then it lists the objectives. And I read through the objectives that they have there, and they are all very clear and reasonable. But I suggested that we add these additional objectives. So that would be encourage new residential subdivisions that are over 10 units to have the garden spaces and neighborhood composting facilities. That's right from our spreadsheet. To encourage new construction to meet, and here we can tweak the verbiage, to meet some energy standards where the total amount of energy used by the building, it's a description of net zero. So I know we're not going to put in there to have the goal of net zero, but we can say something like to encourage new construction to meet sustainable energy standards, right? so that it's part of our, kind of recognized as always being the goal. To encourage superior insulation and high efficiency windows and airtight construction to minimize heat loss and gain promote the installation of rooftop solar panels and other renewable energy systems on new homes through favorable zoning. So the idea here is that in the village plan, we just say that it is the village's prerogative to encourage these things through our zoning. So this doesn't say exactly that we're mandating that, right? It's that we're encouraging it. To incentivize installation of rainwater harvesting systems for non-potable uses like irrigation and toilet flushing. To encourage the use of gray water recycling systems for landscaping and other appropriate applications, and use of native and drought-tolerant plant species in new developments, and to reduce the outdoor water consumption. To encourage the use of building materials sourced from local suppliers to reduce transportation emissions, and to promote the use of materials with high recycled content, such as recycled steel, reclaimed wood, and recycled concrete. Now, these are very specific objectives, and when I gathered these, I thought that in the objectives portion of this plan, we might consider just making a more general statement about encouraging things like this, maybe not name them all so specifically. But then on page 97, it just, our plan discusses the policies that would then be put into place to make these objectives happen. And they have 1 through 15 there, and I suggested adding to revise the zoning ordinances to encourage the higher density mixed use development, reduce reliance on personal vehicles, and identify impediments to green and sustainable building practices, such as green roofs, gray water systems, etc., and suggest changes. So this is from our plan. So we would put it as our policies would be to actually revise the existing zoning to reduce any impediment. And then to incorporate more stringent energy efficient and green building standards into the village's building codes. So revise the existing one and make sure that efficiency standards are part of new ones. And then my addition would be to offer property tax abatements for homes that achieve specific sustainability certifications. I don't know if that's actually reasonable or possible, but you know, it's a thought.
Swing for the fences.
Right?
I mean, yeah.
Or something. It doesn't have to be property tax abatement. That would be the best, but I mean, something. Could we have a village reward program? I don't know. Even if it's just you get your picture of your house on the website.
Right.
Something.
There you go.
Page 98, it talks about supporting the provision of affordable housing. And in addition to their plans that are already there, I suggested adding that we amend the existing definition of accessory dwelling units. So this is talking about small backyard homes, right? Probably heard about like a mother-in-law quarters or tiny houses or whatever. I didn't read through the entire, I don't know all the village's code, so I don't know what is the existing on this, but most existing code does not allow for these accessory dwelling units that you use. So I was suggesting that we consider redefining things so that they might be acceptable. And that's my next point is to establishing specific setback requirements and lot coverage allowances for tiny houses on foundations that are appropriate for their size and ensure adequate light, air, and privacy for both the primary dwelling and neighboring properties. So this, of course, makes housing more accessible and makes it easier for people to live in families of, a bigger extended families living on the same property.
Right.
And then on page 99 of our own plan, it talks about enacting design standards for multifamily housing. And I suggested adding the same things that would be the earlier objective. So what I mean is I'm not sure where they would belong. If they would belong in both areas or just in this area and say refer to the earlier.
Right.
because those things should be done both for the multifamily housing and for new development. So that's what I put together. I don't know if anybody looked at our own objectives and saw any other things on there that would go in the housing chapter.
I did not, but thank you so much for doing all that, both you and Steve. And I totally agree with the accessory buildings or small dwellings.
Yay!
I think that is a great idea. I don't know the code either, so I'm not really sure what would all need to be changed, but I think it's a good recommendation.
Yay!
Yeah, I know at one time, I think there was some discussion about, I don't know if it was actually accessory dwelling units, but it was more like allowing residences above garages like separate. It was something about like adding them on, but I don't know if it was like actually like a separate building in the backyard, like if that was what it was, but I know there was talk about like above garages or above, but I don't know if it was a separate place.
Yeah,
That's all I remember. It was quite a while, but I don't know if anything ever happened with it.
it's a really effective way of getting more accessible housing with an existing property, right? And usually residents really like it. They can, like I said, their extended family living on the same property as them, with a lot of people having their in-laws move in with them, or it can be you know, there's a lot of exchange programs going, a lot of different uses for that.
I think
Yeah,
the
well,
only thing we talked about last time was that along the creek there were, because we had talked about that water corridor, which the ordinance doesn't exist anymore, but something had changed where along the creek or within a certain distance you couldn't have an accessory building
Mm-hmm.
um,
And
to
that would
prevent
probably still
runoff or
exist. Yeah, yeah. It would have to be drafted out so that, you know, it's safe and it's effective and, uh, but I think it's worth looking into. And I think putting it in the village plan is how it gets looked into, right?
It definitely does, or the plan commission just considers it as an ordinance at some point, but
Mhm.
putting it into the plan motivates it along,
Mhm.
or just says it's something that you want to look into in the next 10 years.
So first step of the process.
Right. Wow, Jim, this,
Nice.
this is
That was
great.
really nice, Jen. Thank you for putting that together. Would you share that document with
Yeah.
us?
Not this minute, because I didn't even bring my computer. I'm sharing.
Oh
it.
no. No, not
Yes,
this
I will
minute.
share it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is all good stuff.
The only thing I would, number 18, I'd definitely remove toilet flushing. You don't want extra water going to the sewer
Oh.
plant.
Very good.
Right. Okay. And yeah, just looking at one of just something I'm noticing, like under number 17, I incorporate more stringent energy efficiency and green building standards in the village building codes. I believe that the village can't, under state law, make our code more restrictive than the state code, or more, require more than the state code does.
Really?
Yeah, it's even on commercial buildings, it has to be done voluntarily.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that is true. We can't be
It's so
more
interesting.
restrictive.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know about the specific.
seems like it should be the other way around, right? Like we could
Yes,
make the
the
call,
first
right?
example that comes to mind is like these communities along the beaches in Florida where the they have decided that they're going to be like have a no light ordinance, no nighttime light ordinance, and that would be greater than
Okay, well, that isn't like a building code.
No.
Like, a building code would be like how much insulation.
yes,
you're putting in.
yes.
But like a lighting ordinance, mean,
You
like
think
the
it's
state of
so
Florida
different.
doesn't have a lighting.
Oh, right, good point.
Then like,
So it's not that.
I mean, if the state of Florida
Sure.
said you can use whatever lights you want, well, then you can't have any lighting.
Right, okay, let me,
So that would be like, but this,
So-
but it applies for like even like, because we had a guest speaker come once and talk about it, and it's all like, it's like the state of Wisconsin, like for the new village hall, we're going with like a focus on energy
Yeah.
tier one, like of the three being the best, one being, but it's not none, but it's more than what
yes,
current code is, but we voluntarily are doing that.
so like, a condominium, their HOA can voluntarily choose that for that property, but not for the whole. Right?
Right, exactly. So like when you see encourage superior installation, that's all we can do. We can just encourage it, but we can't
It's not
code.
enforceable.
No, it's not.
Um,
Now,
so basically, that just is something that has to be changed at the state level.
pretty much.
Okay.
It's, yeah, in different states, like there are different, like, I think nationally, some group comes up with a, like, commercial building code. And they put that out, and then it's just, certain states adopt it faster. But Wisconsin hasn't updated their commercial code in like 10 years, and some states are like on the one that was just done 2 years ago. So certain areas require more insulation than others do, and the rest of it's voluntary. Now, there are ways like that you can, which the village, like, let's say that there was gonna be an apartment building built on Main Street and they wanted TIF money. The village would be like, hey, we're gonna give you TIF money, but you gotta put a bullet insulation in your building. So that the village is, because the village or the TIF district is gonna provide the money.
Yeah.
It's a way to
Well-
encourage those sort of, or you can encourage them to put solar panels on the roof. They don't have to, but they're like, hey, we're gonna give you money, so you put solar panels on.
Yeah, that's what encouraging is.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, that's like a way that municipalities
Yes.
do that encouragement.
So when I read this, it says through favorable zoning. So maybe that would mean something like, I imagine there's some kind of zoning regarding solar panels.
There's zoning that it's not permitted by right, meaning that if somebody wants, I mean, they can't stick like weight off your roof. There's like, they have to be like close to the real, like, how do you mean by zoning?
What if I wanted to cover my front lawn with solar panels?
I don't know, I'd have to look. We've never had anyone who wanted to do that inside the village. But it might fall under, like, your yard, you can only have so much of it covered.
And then you also have the setback.
Right.
Setback, right. So within those parameters, maybe that would be acceptable.
Right, yeah, if you want to just put like 3 panels in your bed, but to do the whole thing, if you're covering over 75% of your
Yeah.
yard, that's like, because you're counting your house,
Yeah.
also your driveway, et cetera.
I guess to me, what this says is not that we would make zoning more restrictive than the state, which is illegal, but that when we are creating our zoning, we're keeping these sustainable features in mind. So it would mean like for the tiny houses, right? And maybe the examples in here aren't good because these examples are specific to building, and they should be more to. Because what I'm trying to indicate is what we said is to make sure that they don't impede creating a sustainable building.
Right, which we don't. See, this is where there's nothing in our ordinances that say you can't, collect rainwater for irrigation, but I don't know how do you force people to?
No,
See, I mean,
no,
that's like, I mean,
you're just
I mean,
trying to open it up.
you're trying to,
Not force people to do it. Right. I see.
but there isn't any limitation. We don't have,
Well, this isn't a housing thing, but I think the beekeeping ordinance is extremely limiting. I think the chicken ordinance is extremely limiting. Those things which people could and should be able to do easily are supposedly very difficult because of the ordinances here.
they just require a conditional use permit.
And a yearly fee?
I think there is a.
Yes. And to register your chickens every year? Really? Really?
If you want to change it, we can suggest a change. Now,
that's not a housing thing, so it wouldn't be in this chapter, but
Right.
that's the idea from our plan that is trying to influence here. The idea is review the zoning, building codes, review all the legislation in the village so that it does not impede doing things that are sustainable. Like, I'm sure this was done when people discussed no mow May, right? There's probably some kind of a village ordinance about lawn length.
Right, and
Yeah.
that
And then
just
we all agreed to ignore the ordinance for the month of May.
right.
But really, why are we doing that? Why are we having an ordinance about the length of grass? I don't know. So that would be impediment.
I think we're getting a little sidetracked.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
But, yeah, those were just a few things that I noticed. I mean, they're great ideas, but see, it's,
The verbiage needs to be tweaked because it doesn't apply in this case.
yeah, and that's what's so sort of tough about the carrot and stick in sort of these situations. Like, how do you encourage? Because all you can do is encourage.
So what is the next action with this project?
Well, that's what we were talking about that a little bit before. We're trying to figure out how we would incorporate these ideas actually into the plan. Jenny sort of started a document of where we would insert things. I mean, you've done a great thing. Like, this is like basically kind of like what I think she sort of came up with, right? Oh, Jenny, she has these things like worked out. Like, this would be like objective number 15 and objective number 16, like adding things to the plan. And I assume it's
Okay.
sort of like what you put together or started to put together.
No, mine was just a Word document with just the recommendations, listing the recommendations, but it sounds like that would be more like if we had access to this document and we could just go in and do like the track changes, kind of like the Plan Commission already did, whoever put those comments in there.
Right.
What I thought, if they're not going to give us access to it, unfortunately, but I think
Yeah.
if we put our things in this kind of a format, we could get this to them and they can choose what they're going to put in.
Yeah. And I think like just a listing of the recommendations, like taking a section and like, yeah, being like, no, add number 15 and 6. We recommend you add 15 and 16, that sort of thing.
Right, definitely. And
Yeah, giving them ideas of the verbiage so that they can, if they choose, copy and paste that into the plan.
right, no, definitely. So that's sort of where we're at. I don't know. I can check with Carly. I might be able to get a copy of the comprehensive plan. We can actually go and edit it. It might just be a giant word.
How that works though, like, who decides what goes in there?
Well,
I mean, when there's a document with track changes like that, whoever owns it, I think can accept or decline any changes.
Mhm. But do they have
So,
to
I don't
be
know.
accepted or declined by the board first? I mean, how?
no,
I would
well,
guess the plan commission, but I don't know.
yeah, it would be the plan. Like, I think our recommendation would go to the plan commission now, depending on when they want that or what they're gonna do with it. Because right now there's a survey out, there's a community survey for the comprehensive plan that's going on through September 30th. So I think they're kind of waiting to get that, and then they're gonna try to take that information and try to incorporate some of what they get back from that into the plan.
Okay, so maybe we just present them with our changes and they'll take that along with the community feedback. And then
See what.
put together something reflecting all the ideas.
Would it be
Yeah.
worthwhile to have some sort of like shared Google Doc that takes what Jen and Jenny have done already, that we can kind of just at least have all our ideas sort of in one place?
Well, what do you think about this? What if Michael does get an editable copy of the plan and we can dump our changes in highlighted and then present it to them, and then that's an easy way for them to reflect on whether they want those things there or not.
Right, or, yeah, yeah. Because then you can actually see how it flows with the document.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even asked her about
Yeah, we would just be fooling around with our own little
We
plan
just,
together.
yes, exactly, to see what we want to do with this.
Sure, I could edit my chapter and you could edit your chapter.
Yeah,
Right,
if we're able to
Yes,
do that, I think that would be ideal. If not, then I agree with Steve, then let's just start a Google Doc and I could do that even and send it out once we hear if we can get the full plan for editing or not.
Sure, okay.
okay,
So you got an assignment, Michael.
I'll check on that, see if we can get the plan for editing. Go in and see what we can do. Oh, just a Google Doc. Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. All right, I was supposed to do, or I did chapter 7, which was economic development, and I'll tell you, there's a whole lot of sustainability stuff in here. It is a lot of labor force, education, and income data, and economic base, desired business types. They do talk about, there are the things that are really noticed in here is they do talk about preserving the creek, which is limiting certain businesses because you don't want to build certain things next to the creek was kind of the only thing that I saw that would come through in here. I'll be honest with you, I get really confused when I'm reading this document because I just end up reading it and I get sidetracked from trying to insert sustainability stuff into it because I just start reading it. And then I go back and I try to look at, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not very good at inserting sustainability stuff into the plan, into the comprehensive plan. I'll just be honest with you. It kind of melts my brain a little bit. But it didn't really feel like it lent itself to a whole lot of changes. I mean, the comprehensive plan the things that it really dealt with were, like I said, protecting the creek, and it really deals with, because there's a lot, because with the stuff that it talks about, with how things should look, like the design standards and stuff, and a lot of that is set up to protect the way the village looks. That's why in these sections you have these design standards. A lot of those design standards went into our zoning code at one point. And that's why when you read in here, there are places in the comprehensive plan where they say they want to remove those because those have already been incorporated into our zoning code. So, and that's where when you start looking at these design standards, that's where with what you're talking about, with the zoning standards for the building and things, I'm like, well, because all this visual stuff you can control, but you can't control the building code stuff, or you can't control the energy usage, or the one thing you can control that does mention shielded lighting, that could be incorporated into the plan somewhere. But if they're going to rip all these design, if they're going to remove all these design standards because they've already been incorporated into the zoning code, I don't even know if that stuff's going to exist in the next version of the plan. So that's what I don't know. I didn't really have a document. It was just I don't know what to write. It's confusing.
Michael, I didn't read through it, but I'm wondering, is there anywhere in there about tourism for economic development?
Say that for what for economic development?
About tourism?
Oh, tourism.
Yeah, because I think that's a way that could tie in, because I feel like the creek is that really is our defining feature here, that, people, it's supposed to be world-class trout fishing and that sort of thing. So just maybe putting in there about, preserving the creek is a high priority given its ties to tourism.
I absolutely, you know what? I'm shocked that wasn't the only place that was mentioned. Oh, this isn't. Oh. It's inside the packet. There's one section whereas the village was going to try to come up with a new slogan called, I think, "Come Enjoy," and in there that's mentioned at the top of the economic development thing, which is the tourism piece. But there wasn't ever anything written inside of here for economic development, like a subsection, like what you're talking about, and where you could talk about bringing people to Cross Plains for the creek, and then, you know, Airbnbs being used and et cetera, like sort of that sort of idea. And that's an excellent idea inside of it. And I'm shocked that that isn't there, but I bet you in the final version, there's gonna be something in there because it's been discussed numerous times. It
Okay,
just-
that's great.
It just isn't in this marked up version. But
Okay.
absolutely, because if you're gonna start talking about tourism and talking about the creek, then you should have creek protections if you're trying to put it in your plan and use it for
Right.
tourism.
And maybe that can just be our one recommendation for this section is, you know, maybe come up with a goal or an objective for that, just creek preservation for tourism.
Right, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
See, thank you. See, and then the chapter 8 was just intergovernmental agreements, which was like nothing to do with it. It was just, you know, talk to the township of Cross Plains or Berry and how you can annex land. It's like, it was just really nothing really in there.
Not for us.
Okay. All right, well, that sounds great. I will check with her on getting the editable plan and get back to you and figure out if we need to do a Google Doc, what we want to do with this information or how we want to insert it. One of the other things that so at the beginning of all this, I went through and took our plan items and listed them out on like inside the packet. There's this whole entire thing. And review zoning codes and identify, which is like for development, is like on there. Like, did you take up from this list of things and you know that was there? Okay, yeah. So we have to kind of make sure that we're hitting some of these other ones. But the one section that we kind of missed is the energy section from here. Like this energy section at the beginning, because the water is all about focus on stormwater and carb sea and water retention. We have development, the transportation section all over our ordinance. It talks about inside the transportation section. It talks about, you know, possible bus path and get bike routes and all this other stuff in there. The waste stuff we don't have, but you're talking about, we're kind of talking about the curbside, food or neighborhood composting, exactly. But the energy section is something that we really don't have anywhere in here.
So,
And that's where I don't know where we need to put it. Like where that would go, or does that go in the chapter 2 or just the general nature section? Like I'm not trying to use that like as a catch-all, but we need to sort of, if we want those things to be in there, and whether or not they would even be in there or not, like I'm not even sure the village board's gonna be like established 100% goal to meet all village operations by renewable energy by 2035. That might not fly, like, but put it in the comprehensive plan, it might go in, but who knows? I don't know. And that's where these get kind of sort of touch and go. And that's just where we just put them in there and just see if it goes. And that's really what we just have to do. But that's sort of in the back of my head. I've been like, we need to sort of figure out where that's.
I think we should add an energy section, just a completely
Like a
separate
whole-
section.
Like a chapter, you mean? Or
Yeah. I
would that
mean,
go with the utility? Does it go with utilities?
it can be a subheading under utilities, but
yeah,
I think
that's
you're
true.
right that when we get this editable document, hopefully, we need to make sure that every section at least of our hopes and dreams on that spreadsheet
Right.
is represented
Is
in
in
here.
the plan. That's kind of like where I was just kind of like, all right. Because as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, this is going there, this is,
Yeah.
you know. And but then I was like, where does energy go? Like as I'm reading, and I wasn't able really to figure out a place where to put it. Or,
And it doesn't need to be as exact as it in there. It can be more general ideas, but
well, definitely.
so, yeah, I think once we get the editable document or decide to do our own document, we should make sure that that's all represented in there.
I agree. Okay. Well, how does everybody feel?
Next steps.
Yeah, next step is they get the I'll try to get the editable thing and I'll get it out to you guys and we're gonna start,
Dumping it in.
yeah, going in there and horsing around and dumping stuff in.
This, just as long as we highlight clearly what our new things are, and we do it in a uniform way, so that when we hand it to them, they can see exactly. So we have to agree on how to indicate which are our new suggestions on the plan.
Right, yeah, like if I send out this document to everyone and you start going in, like definitely like highlight what you're putting.
Yeah, it's nice to have it.
So if it's a Word document, you can do, there's actually a button you can push on there. It's called track changes. And then when you start typing or deleting, and you can see that they did that, whoever did marked up this other one,
I
like
think,
it crosses out in red and like adds the new stuff in red. And it will do like a different color for each person who does that. And then it puts the comments on the side and you can put your comments on there too.
I don't have Microsoft Word. Is this something we can?
Okay. I don't know if I don't know if Google Docs does that or not.
Yeah, I think it has at least a simplified version of that. It doesn't sound like it can be as robust as that.
I guess when we get the document, we can see, but,
Yeah, that's the first step, you're right.
Yeah, well, I'll send it out. Whatever you guys email me back your opinions on how you want to edit it. I don't think we're gonna break any open records. All we're trying to figure out how to edit the document. I don't think that we're doing anything illegal by
No.
doing that,
No.
deciding
Just-
anything.
Want it to look nice and uniform when we hand it off to them.
Right, or just even so we have something to present to each other at a meeting.
Yeah.
This is what happened inside the, so we don't have 900 versions.
Right.
It's just like incredibly confusing to try to work with. Okay, well, we will figure that out. I will email Carly and see what she has. All right, is everybody feeling good?
For sure.
Ready? Well, here, I'll just mention, we do have a focus on energy grant for $1,000. We still don't know what we're doing with yet. So we're gonna keep that one on the whole agenda until we figure out what we want to do with it. You know, we good with moving on from the incorporating into the sustainability plan. We have a pretty good idea there. I want to just mention the grant. The implementation is always in the back of the head. These are the things that we're thinking about how to implement them. It's kind of, I don't know what it is, just working through it. And we'll get to the light ordinance sometime. It's just down. I don't know if you haven't read it, please take a look at it. Any questions, just let me know. I can explain some stuff. Tell me if it's a little too over aggressive or not aggressive enough.
and Michael, where do we find
where's
that?
your latest? Yeah. Where is it this days?
No, it's
Latest
actually at the
version.
bottom of the packet. It's the current draft is the last 4 pages of it. So that is it down there. It's, well, we don't have to read it right now if we want to. But yeah, it's down there.
I think we might consider, in addition to controlling light to not be a nuisance, would be to control it to consider, marketing cross planes for a night sky destination.
That would be, hey man, that's a tourist thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have tourism for creek preservation and a
night sky destination.
night sky destination.
Mhm. And then we can go fishing in the dark.
There you go. Well, that would be great. Okay, so now we have a goal. There you go. Yeah, that nuisance thing. There are 2 purposes on there. I haven't figured out the way I want to write it yet. It's been sitting there for a while. The nuisance. I think you can go back and read the original light ordinance, which I didn't include if you want. It's in chapter 84. It's the same section as what that is, and that one was really written from the standard van de Waal, just lighting to reduce nuisance, basically, and not getting into like more advanced like nighttime lighting things like sign curfews on parking lots, things like that. So So if you want to read the old one, it isn't in the packet. It's available on the website. But that's, so it has, so that one you'll see as pieces of the old one with more advanced or just more ways to reduce light pollution.
Right.
So we can talk about that in a future meeting, if you wish. We're at an hour. We have any other, well, we have our next steps. Is there any future agenda items? No, all right.
Michael, you did send out the list of the terms limits or whatever for the members, which I was
did,
trying to
yeah.
digest and figure out because it looked very
You're
screwy
on
to
till
me. But I
38.
think what happens was the new members took an old member's position that already, where the clock was already ticking. Is that why they're like Jen and Jenny's term shouldn't be only 1 year?
That's what I think happened because when like Aaron Linus resigned, his term was, well, you know, he was already 2 years into his term when he resigned. So Jay just, and I didn't know, I mean, it was just like these different seats. And so he just said, this person is in this seat, this person is in this seat. So it's just how it happened. And I just said that, and the terms just expire in April because at the April Village Board meeting each year is when we just reappoint for the next 2 or 3 year thing. But happens all the time. People just resign midterm, but that was just when they were. Melissa had just asked when the terms expired the last time, so that was the earliest.
And we don't have to talk about it, you know, now either, but it could be an agenda item too, just to bring up, just to figure can we reset those somehow? Because that seems like that is not the way it should work, honestly.
Like move people's seats around, you mean?
Yeah. I don't understand why a seat is fixed as opposed to a member. That, you know, you've got new membership, people leave, the clock should reset. So if somebody comes in the last month of Aaron Linus's term where he'd never showed up and then they're only on for a month, that wouldn't make sense. So I don't know, that I'm just saying, could we talk about this next meeting possibly? You know, and again, I'm going off the committee, so who cares? But I've got the longest term, you know, on there, and I do want this to be, you know, I want particularly Jen and Jenny to, you know, see that they've got minimum a couple years of this where they're going to invest their time and not have to roll off. And yeah, so, you know, and I don't know if that takes, you know, Carly as a village administrator come explain that to us, or it can't just be Jay saying when people are on and off because he's the village president. There has to be a structure or a policy or something.
Well, I think there is. I think inside the ordinance when the committee was created, it said that seat 1 is a 1 year term, and then seat 2 would be a 2. Like it staggered it when the committee was created, and so then as those terms end, it's just how people get replaced. I don't think it was done like vindictively or
No, it's just to avoid having everybody's term here at the same time.
Right, exactly.
But it's not quite effective when it's applied to this situation. People leave it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just, I don't think there's gonna be anything that would change. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't know what would change. Like anyone can resign at any, I would prefer you not to, but.
Okay, I think the point is when a person resigns, the next person should just start an X-year term.
Oh, I see.
Rather
Yes.
than
Yes, thank you, Jen. I wasn't explaining it very well. Yeah, it should reset the clock, right?
That's what you
just tweak the way it's done so that we won't have people doing a 3-month term.
I got you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I could look at how that's written and how that's set up there.
Yeah, new person in a seat should reset the clock, I guess is how it should be.
Oh.
And then somehow my term was on till like 2028, and I think I had.
Oh, your turn.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the new folks should have like the longest term. I'll swap seats.
Yeah,
Who wants to
right?
swap a seat? I'll leave. You jump in my seat before someone else gets it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So anyway, thanks for checking into that, Michael. It just didn't seem intuitive to me the way that was set up.
Yeah, I understand. Because people, when there's an open seat, they just fill it.
Yeah.
Whoever comes in, if it's mid-year rather than waiting till April.
which that format might be important if we're having elections, right? We don't want someone to get in and then have 3 years just because they got in the last month. But it's not important if you're not having elections.
Right, yeah, I didn't, yeah, I don't, guess I didn't ticket that. But you're right, though. Okay, I'll check into that. So no future agenda items?
Besides reviewing what we come up with, I guess.
Okay.
And I would like to discuss the light ordinance next time because it says there might be action to be taken on it in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we can definitely talk about the light ordinance at the next meeting. And, we'll plan on doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so with that being said, I have a motion for adjournment.
Jennifer Wong, motions to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Steve will second that.
Okay, a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you.